Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. We are continuing our celebration of Black History Month 2026. And I have another amazing soul with me, Mr. Jonathan Moody, CEO of Moody Nolan. Welcome, Jonathan. It's great to see you. How
Yeah,
are you today?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. So, don't know
Great.
where we're going, but excited for
Oh,
the
well,
journey.
it's
Yeah.
always fun. I appreciate that you've allowed me to interview you more than once, and every time some jewels come out. So we'll get right to it. For those of you who don't know, again, Jonathan is CEO of Moody Nolan. But if you don't know, that's Black history in real life. Moody Nolan is a very successful architecture firm, not just any, but Jonathan, please do tell us
Oh, okay.
about who Moody Nolan is and its place in Black history.
Yeah. So at this point now, we are a second generation Black owned family business. We're in year 44. Um,
Oh,
so started here, in Columbus, Ohio, and we're about 300 staff around the country and 12 offices. And I tell people that whether it be an airport or housing or anything in between, I wouldn't hire us to do houses. At least that's what I've been told to say. But anything in between, from 750 square foot projects all the way up into a couple million square feet, we've done some version or touched it in every project type. Um,
and you've done amazing work and all that, starting with your father, the late great Mr. Moody. And so again, we're so honored to be here. I'm going to kick you off with a different question because again, you're part of greatness. You grew up with greatness in your household, and you are carrying the torch. My question for you to kick us off, though, is tell me a tiny moment, a small victory that's maybe not so obvious. Again, you do big things all the time, but what's a small moment that you're proud of that others maybe would be surprised to know?
so this might sound strange, and it's funny because as I was thinking you might ask something like that and looking around, um, I don't enjoy reading, not at all.
Okay.
And as everybody starts to get into, I think this is the month when people start to come to reality with their resolutions, that kind of thing. Um, it got to a point that I was like, oh, what if I could read a book a quarter or a book every couple months? And then it got to the point that people are like, no, you're a reader because I read about a book a month. And there is a particular challenge that came up where somebody was like, oh, we really need to dive into, five dysfunctions of a team or one of these leadership books. And it was like, you know what? I have read that book. And I have it right here on this shelf right here. So it was like, yeah, they're like, have you ever heard of this book? And I'm like, yes, I have. So yeah, that was a
A
fun,
tiny proud
a
moment
tiny
where you
win.
finally
Yeah,
were able to show up as a winner in a
yeah,
game that you,
yes,
you haven't done so well in. I love it. As I
yeah,
sit here behind me with all these
yeah,
books,
yeah.
which by the way, funny fact about me, I didn't think I liked reading until I wrote my book. And I
Mm,
started doing research for my book about, topics on it. And I was like, oh my God. And what I realized is school made me think I didn't like reading because it made me read stuff I didn't want to. But now that I'm reading stuff I want to read, I actually love it. So interesting fun fact about me.
I
But
I
you're
don't
still
know.
like, yeah, no.
I tell I, they know me around here. I tell a lot of bad jokes, but if you ever know, like, there's like a series of Chuck Norris jokes that are exaggerations, and one that resonates with my reading style is Chuck Norris doesn't read books; he stares them down to get the information he needs. So that's what it's like. It's stuff I need
And
to
folks,
know.
that's the blueprint for leading
Yeah, yeah,
America's top black owned architecture firm. I
yeah,
love it.
yeah.
Oh, all right. So listen, I'm honored to have you for many reasons. One, you're an amazing human. Two, you represent no pressure. But we talk a lot in the Black community about generational wealth, generational success. And whether it's in the Black community or otherwise, generational businesses are successful generational businesses are hard to find. For the most part, I can't recall the stats. Maybe but typically when a business is successful and attempted to be passed down once, let alone multiple times, the stats are really not that good. Feel free to share them if you know them, but nonetheless,
I think it's single digits. Like I think somewhere in the, I think for a first to second, it's like 5 to 10% succeed, and then I think from a second to third, it's like 3 to 5% or less than
wow,
5%.
yeah. So here you are, first to second, 5 to 10%, and here you are. And so I'm curious. I know you pretty well, but I've never really asked you this question, and that's, tell me, like, with little Jonathan, like, tell me your journey. I mean, you tell me about growing up. I don't know how old you were when your dad started Moody Nolan, or what that was like, but as a kid who didn't know that he was eventually going to be leading a generational, very successful generational business. Tell us about your journey growing up, and kind of take us into the part where you started getting into the business.
Yeah, no, sure. What I would say specifically, some of it was a lot out of ignorance, because I tell people that I literally grew up with the firm. So, you can do the math. We've been in business for 44 years, et cetera. But there's a period where the business
And
was
you're how
starting
old?
and exist. Well, see, that's what I don't want to talk about. No, I'm
Oh,
42.
okay.
So,
Oh, that's right. You're
no,
only 21.
yeah. So, no, I'm 42, but there's like a
Okay.
period of childhood that I just assumed was normal, right? Like,
Okay.
just this is what everybody does, right? Like, I'm a kid, my dad's got a job. Um, Sometimes we go to his job or do other things. But I'd say where it became kind of like the first clue of how of like how things were a little bit different, in terms of how I assumed things were normal, is we would always have these vacations where like family vacations where my dad would always be off to the side of the road trying to take a picture of a building or do something. And what I later come to understand was basically so many of our family vacations were like architecture conferences where I just
Oh,
didn't know that, like, oh, I thought we were in Chicago to do, family business, or I thought we were in Boston, and I didn't know that it was like, oh, the AIA National Conference is there that year, and or there's an awards presentation, and we're in Boston, and so I was, exploring the city during the day, and mostly with my mom, and I have two older brothers, and my dad was at a conference doing stuff, but I can put stuff together now, and then always, we're a very sports oriented family. So, I thought for sure, the NBA was the dream growing up, until maybe about high school. But I think the mindset was still, you always compete, you always, things around teamwork, um, all the sports lessons apply, and kind of concurrently was always um, involved or kind of growing up, maybe sometimes it was, as you get into high school, summer internship starts to become like a, hey, I'm going to go, do X, Y, or Z at the company. And you usually involve like putting together furniture or, delivering mail, or just kind of what I would say normal intern jobs. But then high school is really where it started to pivot of a few things had to come together, where I grew up around the business. I had known, started to understand, how unique it was that my dad was an architect, let alone a Black architect. But but it was that, like, what are you going to do with your life kind of thing. And there
no
were two
pressure.
things that, yeah, but, so by high school, I'd realized I wasn't going to the NBA. But
Dang
um,
it.
yeah, but but football had kind of taken off, and then it became well, what kind of, even from a recruiting and all that, what am I interested in? And that was where I really had to say, like, all right, what am I going to do? And I'm like, well, I better tell people what I've been thinking. And I think part of the hard part of what I was thinking about was I didn't know if I was truly interested in architecture because I was interested in it, or because I was just around it.
Mm.
And so, ironically enough, that kind of led to some of the decisions that ended up being made, which were, I applied to architecture school, but I applied to architecture schools where I thought I might play football.
Of
Um,
course, because you're a smart
and
man.
and then I got a call from a coach saying, hey, um, your tape looks good and your application looks good. And I didn't really know what that meant, but it basically meant I had gotten accepted to Cornell, and that they wanted me to try and basically walk on and play football, and they wanted me to come out in the summer before. So that's really what started my journey into architecture. But the irony was, it was also not at all what I thought. I think a lot of people, and me included, even growing around it, I assumed like a lot of people, you have to, it's a lot of math, it's a lot of technical things. And what I learned very quickly is it's a lot of understanding people, understanding what people want, and understanding how to help organize people around creative thoughts and ideas, like people who have visions, who have ideas, but they can't quite bring them together. A lot of it is like being able to say to somebody and I understand your vision for a space, and I understand how to translate that vision from a idea to a reality. And that is most of what we do, most of what I do. And so then from then on, it was like I played for football for 4 years, at Cornell in upstate New York. And then, the time of year, as we talking about a foot of snow, that was kind of normal in Ithaca. So when grad school came around, I was debating whether or not I was ready to move back home, which was maybe my first clue that I would eventually move back home. But I decided UCLA and warmer climates, because it was around this time of year that was considering those things. And so I went to grad school. I worked doing a lot of hospital projects out in LA for about 4 years. And then that's when my dad called and said, "Hey, if I were thinking about moving back," and I said, "Sooner or later." And he said, "Sooner or later probably needs to be sooner." And believe it or not, I've been back for about 15 years. The only way I can describe it is like drinking from a fire hose every day. And the one thing my dad said is, it's still true. It says every day is different. And there's a certain value to that you don't know until you know, but every day is different.
So, okay, you started off wanting to go to the NBA.
Yeah, well, like everybody, right? Like, I thought I would play for like the Magic, maybe. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, because back then that was, what was that?
That was Penny and Shaq.
Penny, yes, Penny and Shaq, of course. Why wouldn't you not want to? But you didn't really have the skills, I take it?
I think at high school realized, the basketball player build as opposed to football player build that's when certain physical realities came into play. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you had more of a chance in football. What position did you play in football?
I played center. So
okay. Yeah. All right. So you were playing center. And did you I didn't hear you say you wanted to be in the league with NFL. Did that not translate?
The best way I can describe it, I have a couple of friends that I believe, well, I know they're still involved in the league to this day. But those couple of friends, when we had our Cornell senior day, we had a couple of NFL scouts, and we all did all the drills and did all the stuff and did all the measurements. And that was pretty entertaining, is the best way I can describe. And then we got to the end, Kevin and Andre were off to the side, and the rest of the seniors were kind of over here. And the scout kind of said, "Look, I don't want to kill anybody's dreams, but the NFL is not for everybody. Good luck. I'm gonna go talk to these two." So that was the end of my NFL career. So
okay, all right. Well, I'm glad he let you down gracefully. All right, so you go to school and you're in it for architecture. At what point did you start to realize that you said you weren't sure if you loved it because you were around it, or
it was kind of day one. I'll tell you, it was kind of day one. And I think, unfortunately, for architecture, that's part of the problem, is a lot of people don't really understand what it is, because even me with my background and exposure, I wasn't truly exposed to what the profession is until college. And the problem is that it is a major that if you don't love it from day one, like it'll eat you alive. So it was kind of like, it was my biggest dilemma that I just had to work through was I had architecture professors from day one that said I'd be a great architect if I forget this whole football thing. And I had football coaches that said I might be a half decent football player if I forget this whole architecture thing. And I was kind of always like, well, I came here for both. I just want to try both at the same time and then see where it goes. So And I always approach things one day at a time, 1 week at a time, just at one Sunday to Sunday. And 4 years later, it was like, hey, I completed my 4 years, and had my senior day, so I was done. So
Gotcha. Okay. So, one of the interesting things about, I had the honor of leading the Columbus CEO Collective for the past 5 years and have been around some amazing, seasoned, very successful Black business owners, and at least for the boomer OG generation, as I call them, for a majority of them, their children did not want their businesses. And so tell me a little bit about your journey, that phone call from your dad and your process to exploring that possibility. Because I think that folks who aren't in the shoes would say, oh my God, that's so amazing. Especially as you're later, right? When as the company continues to be not just a legendary company in Columbus, but across the globe, right? I think there are people who would assume, oh yeah, definitely, but I'm guessing maybe not so simple of a consideration, considering that so many successful business owners, especially of that generation, their children were not interested in succession. So tell me about your journey to sorting that through in your head and with your dad.
yeah, and I'll give you the context too, because I'm the youngest of three brothers, my oldest brother's military, my middle brother's an engineer, who I'll say associated with the business, but not, but more, and we collaborate from time to time, but not direct. So I think the weird risk that I would say those OGs would run into, that it's hard, and the only way I can just explain it is like things happen for a reason. Part of the reason I felt comfortable with it was because it wasn't I was told to do this, or there were any kind of expectations. It was truly, I could decide whatever I wanted to do. And I never had the pressure of like, oh, I got to do this or got to do that. It just happened to work out. And the truth is, part of the reason for going to grad school was, there was a point in which I thought, I would stay in the theory world, just, architecture, philosophy, just creative ideas. And maybe I would teach, maybe not. But I thought there was an idea that I could come back, and work in the company, but I wasn't ever really sure. And I think a lot of my early career experiences, just really helped to clarify, what I realized was a unique opportunity to come back to Moody Nolan, and be a part of a family business, be a part of just a different style. Like one of the things, that we do that's different, that was a great for me, is here we wear multiple hats and people do multiple things. And a lot of times, a lot of architecture firms is like people work on one project at a time, and they work on it from start to finish. And sometimes you can feel a little bit isolated. So when the idea of saying, hey, Jonathan, would I consider this? And it would probably be a different change of pace and a different scale. It was kind of incredible to say like, oh yes, I'm a little bit like all over the place at times mentally. So it was kind of a great alignment, to say, oh, I can, change the pace a little bit, work at a little bit different scale, a completely different pace. It just seemed to make a lot of sense. The timing of it worked out well. And I think the part that really is, I think somebody corrected me to say, not to say lucky, but to say blessed. It was personality type. I think there was always a very clear understanding of what it meant to be, I work from bottom up to say there's a business, and then there's a family that's kind of above it. And those relationships are important and special, but there's clarity around that hierarchy, and there's clarity around, my dad started something incredible, and he's the visionary, he's the founder, and I'm here to kind of, help shepherd it along for another generation. And it was always very clear and obvious how that was going to work, and what my place was, but also the clarity around, if and when he decided a certain thing, like there wasn't a like, that's terrible, that's a bad idea. It's kind of like, well, he started this company, and it was a little bit of like, my dad says this is what's good for you, and I'm like, yep, well, he's my dad, so that's what he'll do. So that, and I know that dynamic is unique because not everybody has, I'll just say, the right character to make that align and make it work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So when he called you to talk to you about coming home, was it to come home and work
Yeah.
with him? Okay.
Yeah,
And
maybe to give you a little
did
bit
he
more.
speak to you about the potential succession, or it was just to work with him at that point?
It was just to work with him, and it was, I think there was always kind of an unspoken, yeah, at some point there has to be a transition plan. And and again, I will say this, for people who are, in that mind space, and too many conversations I have are, hey, I need to put together a 6-month succession plan. How does that align with your plan? And it was like,
Ooh, 6
ours was,
months, honey.
yeah, I mean, that's what ours was, 10 to 15 years. Even my old boss, when I, was working in LA, and saying, hey, does the timing really make sense? And he kind of pushed me out the door in a positive, respectful way, but just to say, transition takes time, and the more time you have, the better. So
Absolutely.
that was truly, yeah. And then the other part of the story is, I still say, like, life happens fast. I think my wife and I were dating at the time. I think we had been dating for like a year and a half, and it was kind of like, well, are we going to get married? And it was like, okay, and then let's get married. And then I was truly one of these people that I think are becoming more rare. I had no idea the difference in cost of living between LA and Columbus. So I literally remember visiting, and I knew what my studio rent was, and I'm like, wait, you
Oh,
can get
you
a
were
whole
elated.
house. You can get a whole house for this much. So it was literally, it went from what I consider moving back
To
to,
heck yeah.
I bought a house. I moved back. I got married, and then my son was born 40 weeks exactly from our wedding, which is still kind of crazy, because he's 13 now. So
Wow. 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 And so also interesting is that you're a millennial.
yeah,
And so you and your dad had a bigger age gap than I would think is common in succession, and passing down generation to generation, which I would have assumed that would make it more difficult, but maybe it actually made it a little easier. I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
no, I think it made it. I think, again, it made it easier because I know some of the places where people have to draw hard lines, like, meaning there's a hard line between family or
Mm-hmm.
business, or
Mm-hmm.
or vice versa. For us, it was always very clear, and there was always, again, the only word that's right is clear. There was a clear, his generation was a part of this. My role in my generation is to support and further this. And so at times where there's tension or friction around decision making, we didn't have that. Like, it was
Right.
always very clear. And then I think, the other thing that's kind of hard to, um, you don't know until you know, is like a vision or a mission, and like, what is it we're really trying to achieve. There was always also clarity for us with that,
Mm-hmm.
meaning, yes, the most important thing is to run a successful business, but after that, there are all these reasons why our business needs to be successful, in terms of, simplicity of, if you can see it, you can be it, or blaze trails, or just so many other ideas or mindsets.
Mm-hmm. So, what are some key challenges you had in getting to the point where you transition? And I know are we at two? Is it been 2 years since your dad passed now?
A year and a half, maybe.
Year.
So
I was
yeah,
thinking it was the end of the year. Okay, yeah.
yeah.
So and love and light again as you continue to process that. Um, what was it like to on that journey to go from working with him to start to be in the seat and then be co-leading? Because for a while there you were co-leading, yes?
Yeah, well, I think if there was any
Air
part
quote.
of the plan that wasn't the plan, and it's just things happen for a reason. I think there was a vision where we would parallel one another and
Mm-hmm.
kind of say, like, oh, we'll attend these meetings together. And I think just, the business changed so fast that it became more of a divide and conquer. Um,
Mm.
and
Change meaning
true
grew so fast.
growth, opportunities, but just, there's a reality for our business of, you know, whether it's fair or unfair, that certain clients and certain people have an expectation that if you're hiring Moody Nolan, somebody named Moody is going to be in the room.
Mm.
Um, and so that's where it was a, yes, there was a, oh, we would be together. And then no, it's like, no, these things are happening at the same time. You go here, you go there. Or my other favorite one that he would do is thinking we were going to go together. And then him, you know, the grace, everything he'd earned through his career, say, he don't feel like going, I'll go by myself. And, you know, there was a certain, I'm trying to think of the right word. There was a certain confidence that if he told me to go on my own, there wasn't like, oh, I need to make sure I know this, this, and this. It's like he wouldn't tell me that if I wasn't ready. So
Right.
it
What
was
a
the
gift.
like, well, you know, well, he told me to go, so I don't know if I'm ready, but I'll just show up with the skill sets I have and trust that that's enough.
And
And
rock
it,
it out and see what happens.
yep. So
Well, I love the warm and fuzzy stuff, but I love to get into the hard stuff too. So, and this, my next question could be, I mean, because you are a human that is your own identity outside of being the son of Mr. Moody. But tell me about a time where you had, a setback, maybe a moment where you felt like you almost quit. This could be personally or professionally, because again, I think from the outside, it's like dreamy, dreamy. What a gift to be in this world that you're in and be on the journey. But everybody has hard. So tell me about a time when you were literally like, I don't know about it.
yeah, the funny thing. So all right, Dr. Joy, you would appreciate, because sometimes it's others' words that help. But when Fawn Weaver was in town and she talked about the realities of entrepreneurship, because everybody gets excited by the warm and
Mhm.
fuzzy stuff, and nobody likes to, because they're not just as exciting stories. I don't know what it is, but those like, no, 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 there was a time when we're not even sure we can make payroll,
Right,
or
right.
and
That part.
the reality is, like, in order to get, I think you'd be hard pressed to find one, but any story of success that seems like overwhelming success, there come moments,
There's
like
some
there were a
secret heart
couple last year
behind there for sure.
where it was the like, no, this is we have to put everything on the line,
Yes.
and I don't know that it's going to work.
Mm.
And in you're really just kind of betting on yourselves. And I would say, there've been a couple moments in the last year where I think what was different, is maybe when my dad was hovering, or present is maybe the right word. Um, there was always the like, well, I got a fallback of like, even if I mess up, right? It's like the, well, there's a safety net, so to speak. But then all of
Mhm.
a sudden you take the safety net away, and some of those big decisions that are kind of risk it all decisions are truly like, I don't know if this is going to work, and I need to see results in the next 6 weeks to see if this is going to work. And those maybe 6 weeks are hard. Every night is kind of like a, well, we'll see if something happens tomorrow, we'll see if this breaks through, but it's like, I don't know that it's going to. And if it doesn't, what are the implications of that?
Mhm.
But that is the, ironically, Fawn's word of reassurance was, yeah, every success story has that like,
Yep.
yes, coupled with success is dang near failure, or sometimes actual failure. So, um,
100%, which is just lessons, right?
yeah,
That we use and move forward in. But I mean,
yeah,
easy to say. I think easier to say, especially when you don't have that succession pressure, right? Where it's one thing when your own dream that you've built from the ground up, you put it on the line. But when you have taken the baton from your father,
yeah.
and all the folks who have trusted him and partnered with him and all the things, that's another level. So curious, as perhaps some tips and tricks for folks, not that this kind of moment has tips and tricks, but what do you do in moments like that when you're putting it on the line and you're really not sure what's going to happen?
Um,
How do you maneuver the moment?
so, I, right, maybe it's not necessarily big things, maybe it's little things. So sometimes, maybe it's one of the big. There's a for me, there's a level of faith, of understanding that, what is an ultimate mission is, beyond anything in terms of business or finance or any of that. It's kind of there's a broader idea of success. But then, stepping down from that, sometimes it is the the little reminders, or even like daily affirmations, or kind of small moments of reflection. And I still have one that I try to remind myself every day, like quite literally say it out loud every day, is, it's never as bad as I think it will be, right? Like in terms of these moments
True.
of like, there's a difficult meeting or a difficult conversation.
Mhm.
It's like, so I just got to get up and get through it. And then the reminder that like, if there's a mission that I'm trying to reach, right, or a vision, associated with it, that success could be defined differently. So success is just a journey, right? Not a specific destination. So it's kind of like, and so sometimes it's like, well, today the path is pushing me here, so we go there, and tomorrow it may take us somewhere different. But just kind of remind myself each day that like, I'm not trying to conquer 5, 10, 20, and 40 years of legacy. It's just like, it's today and it's this week.
It's this moment, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, that is, I so much live by that. As I say, I like to stay in flow, right? So that God/universe can show me the path. And I'm curious that you bring that up, because you literally hit on about the next 4 things I wanted to cover in one response there. But that makes me curious for you, because it sounds like you're really living the same way I live, which is, again, just to be guided in the moment. But that also requires, if you're running a successful business, that requires obviously structure, strategy, and planning. But then we're also talking about being in flow and pivoting in moments. So how do you balance between the plan that you used, your brain, and the amazing staff that you have to think through and strategize? How do you balance activating, because that's what we said we were going to do, this was the timeline, this was the milestones, with the stay in flow, know when to pivot, and be able to breathe? Like, who the heck knows? I have no idea. Just do it.
I mean, to a degree, it's that. It's like, again, so the funny thing, like, I have one of our, like, he's a managing partner, Brian Tibbs, and we have every now and then we have like an end of the day or end of the week call, and we kind of go through the list of things that we may need to pivot, or things we may need to adjust, or hey, this is going according to plan, and literally sometimes the answer is like, well, we'll try it again tomorrow. And that's like, we don't have all the answers today. I do. That is one of my, one of my other daily reminders of saying out loud is like, I'm trying to eat this elephant, and it's planting and sowing. And so I can't control the harvest, but I'm like, I just got to keep planting these seeds and trust that these little seeds work out. No, I don't have it.
Is there a book for that? Are you about to grab a book?
No. Well, and then every now and then you get these things that are kind of, affirming the affirmation, so to speak. So I remember, I used to keep a like a Kroger size thing of mustard seeds, right?
Really?
Because sometimes it just helped to like, no, you don't got to do the big thing. It's just a reminder of scale. And we had like an all staff town hall where I would, remind people that, and sometimes you don't know, like, are people even paying attention, or they even care. Somebody got me a tiny little vial. I probably can get it. I probably can get it.
I'd love to see it.
But it was the reminder that sometimes these things that I'm like, I'm just saying this to myself.
You keep it in your bag with you. I love this.
Oh yeah, it has to go everywhere, right? So hold on, give me 1 second. I'm sorry.
You travel with the mustard seeds. This is so amazing.
Yeah, but
in the stash.
Of course they're not. Of course, it's gonna be hard to find them now, right?
Oh,
now that I've talked about it. Oh my gosh, this is gonna drive me crazy. So.
We'll keep looking while we talk.
Well.
You probably left them from the last time you had to pull them out to use them to remind you.
No, they're right. They're right here in my pouch. it's just I got too much other stuff in the pouch. But
Oh my gosh, this is the reality of success right here, y'all. As we look at this live footage of the CEO of Moody Nolan looking for
uh,
his
that's
mustard
the
seed.
yes, it's a
There they
little tiny
are.
thing. Yes, so they do travel with me, but
Okay.
somebody got that for me because they said, "Hey, just I did hear you, right?" And
Mhm.
I do understand what that means, and maybe you don't need to carry that giant thing. You can just
Oh, they
I
upgraded
got
you
you
from
this
the
little thing. Yes, so, yeah,
love it. I
yeah,
love it. I love it. So that being said, success is hard. It's rewarding, but it's challenging. And so, you and I have had many conversations over the years about well-being, and I know, well-being is a journey, just like success is. Which I would argue, success is its own, or well-being is its own version of success. But what do you do to stay well as you are maneuvering, being a parent, being a husband, being carrying this legacy and maneuvering, I mean, in this day and age, leading in this business world, in this world today is is not for the faint at heart. So how do you stay well mentally and or physically throughout
yeah,
all of this?
yeah. You've heard a lot of my little weird quirk things. Um, I have a weekly or monthly kind of. I have a couple different forums where I would say I get the opportunity to um, reflect,
Mhm.
and sometimes it's good as reminder because sometimes it's the little things of like I'm giving updates in those forums, and those updates, although it sounds like I'm telling other people, it's really a space where I am saying out loud the things that I am reflecting on and processing how I'm feeling about those things. And to have a pretty good rhythm of that, whether it be, monthly or every week is kind of good practice. And I have morning, daily affirmations. I have the simple things of like, workout routines and all that stuff. But then I have um, I try to 3 times a day. I'll say to find 2 minutes to just be fully present, which is
Hmm.
hard when you're really
How do you
busy.
do that? I have tried that so many times, but when I get where like I am moving at the speed of light and there's always so much to do, or how often do you even pull that off 3 times a day?
Two 2 minutes, that's it, right? It's
No. You
just
stop in the middle of your day?
well, I try to make time like kind of beginning of the day,
I think the
right
beginning and
before
end are a
lunch.
little bit easier, but once
Yeah,
I'm rolling in work, like it is really hard. Do you
but
schedule it?
right around lunch is usually
Do you
the
eat
like.
lunch every day?
Yes, I didn't think about that. But yeah, I have a reminder every day to eat lunch. I learned that during the
Okay.
pandemic. If I don't write down like, well, because I am like I get hangry. So like,
Yeah.
if I don't, and usually the funny thing is if around this time I haven't had lunch, this probably wouldn't be a good interview.
Oh,
So
no doubt. You'll
so
be
no,
eating the
I have a
seed.
reminder every day to eat, and just before eating, it's like, well, can I take 2 minutes and kind of do nothing, which is
You
kind of a
do, so
weird.
you do it. You've inspired me. I've gotta step up my game because I've done it here and there, but it's really hard because I just, especially when it comes to creative work, which I do a lot of strategy and work that just when the floodgates are open, I never want to interrupt them. But I'm gonna work on it and get back with you.
Yeah.
I'm asking you to hold me accountable, Jonathan.
Well, but maybe the irony is my schedule allows it because I have so many interruptions throughout the day. Like everything
Yeah.
is a back to back
Yeah.
to back, and it's
Yeah.
like
That makes it a little different.
so I have to
Can you
stop all the
can you
time.
share one or two of your affirmations that you say, or at least
Oh
or at least the topic of them if they're too personal to share?
no, they're not. They're not like there's 13 of them.
Oh,
So I
too
don't
many
want
to
to get
pack.
yeah. Well, because it's to remind myself I'm thankful as always. I'm always thankful for another day to serve. That I need to speak to my mountains and remember the mustard seed, right?
Mhm.
Um, I think another good one I like is I actually got this from one of Oprah's books. It was kind of her last quote. It's like, I will let my choices reflect my hopes and not my fears.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I like
So
it.
those are a
Okay.
few. So
I
unless
love
you
it.
really want all 13, but yeah.
Now that's a good, those are good. And did you read that Oprah book now since you did?
Yeah. Yeah.
Since you confessed that reading's
It
not like
was actually oh shoot, it's the woman from NPR. Oh Aisha Roscoe's.
Mhm,
It was actually her book, and it was about HBCUs. And the last chapter was about Oprah and her journey. And then
mhm.
Oprah had a whole thing about leadership tips. But that was one that really resonated with me. And it is, that's part of what I try to do, is like hard decisions, right? It's very easy to get into the making a decision based on everything that might go wrong. Like, well, if we do that, that might live, or if we do that, this client might fire us, or we do. And it's like, nope, we make the decisions based on what we hope to see happen and the positive, not what I'm afraid might happen.
I
Um,
love it. I love it. Fear cannot be in the driver's seat. 100%.
yeah.
100%. All right, so I got two final questions. The first one is, if you could share any advice with someone who is on the journey to achieving their dreams, what would you tell them?
On the journey to achieving your dreams. So, and maybe I'll just answer this from like personal perspective. Um, because I think for us the imposter syndrome stuff is real, and so there are oftentimes moments that you might ask yourself, "Am I really ready to be here?" Right, and everything that comes along with that. And you know, if you allow yourself to believe that things happen for a reason, you're qualified because you're there, and you don't need to do anything to qualify yourself to be there. So literally, because you are in the room, meaning everything brought you up to that point to be in the
100%.
room.
It's not
So
an
don't
accident.
say why am I ready, or it's like you're ready just because you're there.
Mhm.
And and don't try to be so that was one that I would say, Pastor Troy from my dad's ceremony, it still resonates with me. He said his grandmother told him what he was telling me is, baby, you got to be who you is. So
Yes. Be who you
just
is.
be
And,
yourself in that moment, even as hard as it may seem.
and may I add, I personally don't feel like, as we celebrate Black History Month, I don't think we're qualified to have imposter syndrome because we know how much harder we have to work to get anywhere and do anything. So I just really don't feel that we're qualified to have it. That's just my little tidbit of
Fair
my
enough.
perspective. So anytime someone from our community says they're struggling with that, I just refuse to hold space for it because, honey, do you know where and from whom you came from? And what you do every day is so much more than
Yeah.
most others can ever imagine. So my last question is, at Achieve Global, our tagline is cultivating meaningful success together. So my question for you, my final question, what does meaningful success mean to you?
Hmm. So the funny thing, this might sound like a strange answer, but it's like an answer with a story, and it goes to all those things about generations and even a lot of the people, that you come across at Achieve Global. But there was an event here in Columbus, that yeah, it was President Obama was here in town, and it was all the who's who, et cetera, that went to the. It's not a huge group. It was like maybe like 80 people or something like that. But there was this weird thing that happened where, because of security or other things, I was there with my dad and I was there with his peers, who all know each other from that generation. That it represents a certain, I'll call it, level of success or generation of success. And I got separated, right? So it was like a weird, like, because we got to sit down and they got strict security. I
Mhm.
couldn't sit with them. I had to sit by myself.
Mm.
And I've told a few other people the same thing, people who it would matter to. But it was an interesting realization of looking across the room and seeing them together with each other and
Mm.
understanding what that success represented and what it meant, and realizing I was sitting by myself.
Mm.
And I said, my goal, or what success really means, is when those rooms happen, when those opportunities, when those unique events happen, I don't want to be there by myself. Success is not, I'm just there. It's a look at who all came here with me. Like that's the
Mm.
Yeah.
It's the
So
together part.
yes. Yeah.
Oh, I love it, Jonathan. Thank you so much for that. Oh, this was so inspiring.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for being who you are. You have been such a gift to me multiple times over the years. Looking
Thank
forward
you.
to many more intersections as we move together and do great things as it relates to generational wealth and well-being. So take care. Love and light to all of you. Again, let's keep celebrating Black History Month and remember Black history is every day. Jonathan, where can they check out your website for all of the amazing stuff that you guys are doing at
Yeah.
Moody Nolan?
Yep, moodynolan.com, MOODYNOLAN, moodynolan.com. It's got everything. So
Boom. Please do check out the story. It has awesome pictures of Jonathan's dad and some of the journey of such an amazing firm and a story of an amazing family. If you want to learn more about Achieve Global, you can visit us at achieve.global. Thanks so much. We'll see you guys on the next interview. Take care.
thanks.